Hello, reading and writing friends. I'm Krista Tomlinson, indie published romance author. Thank you for joining me for this video on romance novel no-nos. If you're wondering what my qualifications are to tell you about things that you can and cannot write in romance, I've been reading romance novels for about 35 years. I've been writing them for about 15, and I absolutely love the genre. While some of you may be curious about these romance novels, I know that there are some of you who may instantly reject the idea that there is something that you cannot write in a genre. However, it's okay. I want you to know that nearly every genre has things that you can or cannot do, or that readers do or do not expect in their books, not just romance. So, of course, you as the author, the writer, the creator are always welcome to ignore these reader expectations and write different things. However, before you do so, it's best to know exactly what they are first and understand why readers may or may not like them, and then figure out how to write your story in a way that can include those things while still making the readers happy. So before you break the rules, you have to know what the rules are and why they exist and how they function. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Romance novel no-no number one is changing the love interest. When a love interest is introduced, romance readers settle in, ready to go on the journey of those two characters or more, if it's a polyamorous romance, going on this journey together, falling in love, getting to know each other, falling in like first, falling in love after. We expect to go on this journey with this character. How do we know who the love interest is? Well, in romance, it's normally pretty simple. Just look on the back of the book. Most romance novel blurbs or back cover copy list the characters who are going to be in the relationship. So if we have a Luke on the back of the book and then we have Luke introduced on page, we know that that's going to be the love interest. Other ways that you can tell who the love interest is going to be is how the main character interacts with them. So when they first meet this character, if they have a certain spark, whether it's a spark of attraction, a spark of emotion, some sort of feeling of awareness, or maybe even an instant dislike if you're doing some sort of rivals or enemies to lovers type thing. If they have an instant spark and the author calls attention to it, you can pretty much assume that that's going to be the person who the main character is going to have the most interaction with, and that's who their love interest is going to be. Another way you can tell is because this is often the person that the main character describes their physical details. So they're going to talk about, what they look like, the color of their hair, how they smell, how they dress. And even if they don't quite understand why they're so caught up in what this person looks and smells like, especially if it's got to have the sense in there if it's in the multiverse romance. But if the character may not be understanding or may not be aware of why they're so concerned about what this person looks like. But that's just another way to call attention to the fact that this character is really aware of this person. So that's going to be the love interest because they're describing them, they have the spark with them, and they were named on the back of the book. We don't hide who the love interest is going to be in a romance. It's not a mystery. We want the reader to know who the love interest is going to be because we want them to go on the journey of the character getting to know this person, their relationship developing, and we can't do that if we don't know who the love interest is. So it's not a mystery. We want to let the readers know this is the person for you to get emotionally invested in. However, since the reader is getting emotionally invested in this character, if the author were to switch it up and say, oh, sorry, they're not going to be with Luke, they're going to end up with Dave, then they're like, what the hell? What just happened? Why did I spend my time getting emotionally invested in this character if they're not going to be the one that the main character is going to end up involved with? So you don't want the readers to feel like they wasted their time. You don't want the readers to feel like they wasted their emotional investment in a character that the person isn't even going to end up with. So you want to be really careful with that when you're writing romance. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about love triangles? And love triangles, how do we know who the love interest is going to be? Well, to that I say, even in a love triangle, we can usually tell who's going to be the person the main character ends up with. So, for example, take the Twilight Saga. We had Team Edward and Team Jacob, where we had two characters who Bella could choose between for her to have her eternal love with. However, even though readers may have been on either one of those teams, and both characters were presented as love interests for Bella, you pretty much knew that she was going to wind up with Edward. Just the way that the story is told, he's the one she has the emotional connection with. He's the one that she stares out the window for months after he disappears. He's the one that she cares the most about. He's the one that she's constantly thinking of. He's the one that the author shows them connecting with, shows them having a kiss that she actually wants. So the author will do things to let you know that this might be a love triangle, but this is who the person is going to actually end up with. If Stephenie Meyer had written it in a way where it looked like it was going to be Edward, and then all of a sudden it ended up with Jacob, she probably would have had a lot of angry readers. Maybe not the people who were Team Jacob, but most of the people who were Team Edward or who just expected it to end up with Edward would have probably been really angry that she changed the love interest up at the last minute in the last book, or wherever she decided to change it. So those are things that you don't want from your readers. You don't want them to be angry with you because you changed their love interest, and you don't want them to feel like they wasted their time. You never want a reader to feel like they wasted their time reading a book. So you don't want them to feel like, I wasted my time getting emotionally invested in this character, and that's not who they end up with, so why did I even bother to read that book? You want the readers to end up with the book happy and satisfied, so you have to be careful to not change the love interest. Romance novel no-no number 2 is cheating. A lot of readers, not all, but a lot of readers hate cheating in their romance. Readers typically don't want either character to cheat, but they especially don't like it when the love interest cheats on the main character because it feels like a massive betrayal. If you've, declared your feelings for this person and you love them so much and they have a piece of your heart, it feels like, well, then how are you able to go off and, give another piece of your heart or your body or your soul to another character after you've already declared yourself for this person? So it cheapens the relationship, it cheapens the fairy tale, it makes it harder for the reader to believe in that fairy tale if the love interest goes off and spends some time with another character. So that's something that you definitely want to be careful of. I think a lot of readers take cheating personally because it's something that happens in real life as opposed to a lot of the outlandish and over-the-top plot devices that we can come up with when we're writing these fictional stories, whereas cheating is something that legitimately happens in relationships. So if that happens and the reader, really can't forgive the love interest, then they can't root for the main character to fall in love with them because they can't fall in love with them, and the happily ever after is ruined. Now, I know this might seem unnecessarily strict, but cheating in romance includes the love interest being with someone after they've met the main character, but before they've declared their intentions or declared their emotions to the main character. So basically, if they've met the character, but they haven't declared they haven't fallen for the character yet, there's, there might be that space in there. That space of time, readers still don't want to see the love interest messing around with somebody else. They still consider that as cheating. So basically, once the love interest is on page, they should not be having any sort of emotional or physical intimacy with anyone else. Now, it is different if it happens, off page, before the two characters, really interact or really know each other, or before they meet. That's different. We're not going to consider that as cheating. But once they have interacted with each other, that's it. Your time of having a little oochie coochie with other people, that's done with. Before we move on to romance novel no-no number 3, let's take a look at this week's featured book. Romance novel no number 3 is the big one, the worst offense, the unforgivable sin, killing the love interest. In romance novel no number 1, I said you don't want to have the reader waste their emotional investment. This is an even worse way to have the reader feel like they wasted the time and the emotional investment they spent on a character if you kill the love interest off. In romance, we expect the love interest and the main character to exist in the relationship together forever. Once we close the book or turn off the e-reader, we expect them to just stay together, just frozen in time, never dying, because it's called the happily ever after. This means forever. Is this unrealistic? Yes, but who cares? It's fiction, it's fantasy, so that's what we need to have for our expectation of our couples, of our love interest, and our main character once we're finished reading that story. Taking that happily ever after away by killing off one of the characters takes away the entire reason that a romance reader picks up a book. So this is why you don't want to do that in romance. Because again, we go into it expecting to have this happy feeling when we're finished, and that's not the same vibe that you're going to get if one of the love interests dies at the end of the story or somewhere in the middle of the story. That's not saying you can't write it in fiction, that there are wonderful books where characters die. That's not saying that you can't write it ever, but in romance, the expectation is both characters are going to be together to the end forever once we close the last pages of that book. So you may be wondering, why are those things big no-nos that we can't do in romance novels? It's because when romance readers pick up a book, they have certain expectations. So just like in sci-fi, you expect there to be some sort of science fiction anomaly that has to take place, or some sort of space battles, or whatever it is. In romance, readers expect there to be, a couple are falling in love. They're going to have relationship trials and tribulations. They're going to work their way through it, and they're going to be together at the end. So there's a comfort in that. And knowing what you're going to get from this story, you want to live vicariously through the relationship that's taking place on page. You want to feel the joys and the highs and the lows as this couple falls in love. So those are all the things that we want. And when we have things like cheating or switching up the love interest, that takes the reader out of the story. It takes away that security that they were looking for, that comfort that they were looking for by reading this book. And if you were to go ahead and kill the love interest off, then that definitely ruins the entire experience, because they went into it expecting to have something happy and to end with a feel-good moment, but you can't feel that way if the love interest is dead. Now, I said that those are things that you can never do in a romance novel. I lied. Okay, so when you're writing, obviously you do not have to pay attention to every single rule that exists. That would just be incredibly restrictive. No one wants to write that way. While those are 3 big things that you should definitely try to avoid in your writing, that's not to say that you can never do them. So for example, killing off the love interest. This can be done in a way that works for readers if you know what it is that you're doing and you're still giving the reader that feel-good moment at the end of the story. So let's take the book Always by Kendall Alexander. This is a book, an MM romance novel, and it does have the love interest die at the end. However, it's written in a way that it still feels hopeful. The characters are technically still together. So although for me, I didn't care for this story as much, but that was probably more of a personal thing because I had recently, there had been just a short amount of time between myself losing a partner and reading that book. And so to me, that really wasn't something that I was looking for in a romance. If I were to read it now, I might feel differently. But readers love that book because it is still a romance. There's still a way where we have the characters pass away, but it's done in a way that still gives the readers that emotional way that still gives the readers that emotional payout, that emotional connection that they were looking for. So that's why if you know what the rule is and know how to break it in the way that still is going to give the reader what they're looking for, then it's not so much a thing where it's something that you can never do. For cheating, I myself wrote cheating in a romance. This was only the third full-length book that I had ever written. Well, technically, second full-length book that I'd ever written. And while I was aware of that rule, I felt that I was aware of the rule that once they're together, that you can't really have them cheat on each other. But in this story, it was they had already met. They hadn't declared that they were going to be together as a couple when I had one of the main characters cheat. And so I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but in the reviews, I did get some people who were complaining. And since when it was originally written, it wasn't technically written as a romance; it was written as a fan fiction. Once I redid it as a romance, I realized, maybe a lot of romance readers are uncomfortable with this, and I don't want them to feel uncomfortable when they're reading my book. So I went ahead and I took that part out. But even if I had left it in, there are readers who like cheating in their romances. There are readers who will request romance novels that have cheating in them, either because they really like the angst of it, because there can be a lot of angst in a cheating romance, or maybe it's something they're trying to work through on their own, as maybe they're the cheater or the person who got cheated on, or they just maybe just like it. So, so that you can write cheating in a romance, but you want to still make sure that you're doing it in a way where you're gonna have a lot of work to do to build that character, that love interest back up in a way for the reader to feel like they can still love them and still want the main character to love them in the story. So that's my 3 romance novel no-nos, ranked from least to most heinous. No changing the love interest, no cheating, no killing the love interest. So I would love to know your opinions. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my ranking. Are they all equally weighted as far as which one is terrible, or do you think they should be arranged differently? And if you've read any books that have any of those no-nos, let me know what you thought of those books. Did they work for you? Were you uncomfortable reading them? And if you're a writer, and if you've written or are writing any romance novels, including those no-nos, I would love to hear about them below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see more videos from me, feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I would also love it if you gave this video a like if you liked it, and please feel free to share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.